a particular occurrence at the tail end of the Vietnam War would become its trademark deed. During the massive humanitarian operation that evacuated the remaining Americans and thousands of South Vietnamese civilians on April 29, 1975, Major Bung-Ly stole a bird dog to flee from Con Son Island and take his family to safety. With no working localization instruments and the aircraft's fuel running out, the South Vietnamese pilot eventually followed a helicopter squadron and spotted a U.S. aircraft carrier in the open sea. The USS Midway was already rescuing hundreds of evacuees when a note fell from the skies. Quote, "Please rescue me. Major Bung, wife, and 5 child." Unprepared to land a restless aircraft amidst the frenzied chaos, Captain Lawrence Chambers risked his own career to help a fleeing family in distress. Even though the Paris Peace Agreement had supposedly ended the war in 1973, the North Vietnamese Army kept the war going and took advantage of the near absence of Americans. By early 1975, the NVA had seized key bases and captured several coastal areas. A frenzied evacuation ensued, with the remaining Americans and many South Vietnamese civilians boarding military aircraft and transport planes en route to the Philippines, Guam, and Wake Island. On April 29, 1975, considered the last day of South Vietnam's existence, Communist forces led by General Van Thien Dung were closing in on Con Son Island, one of the last bases still controlled by the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. Operation Frequent Wind. That morning, on April 29th, a massive humanitarian effort had already been launched. It was called Operation Frequent Wind, and its objective was to transfer and watch over thousands of evacuees. The arrival of Vice President Nguyen Cao Ky and Lieutenant General Gung Quang Trong to the USS Midway aircraft carrier marked the beginning of the operation. By 11 a.m., Secretary of State Henry Kissinger ordered American diplomats to evacuate the country through a secret signal, quote, "The temperature in Saigon is 105 degrees and rising," as the song White Christmas started playing. Evacuees in Saigon would then move to extraction sites, board buses, and head to the airport. The New York Times declared, quote, "At least 74 planes of the South Vietnamese Air Force streamed into the U Ta Phao Air Base in southern Thailand without warning." The USS Midway and the 7th Fleet had been ordered to aid in the evacuation of American diplomats, CIA agents, contractors, and Marines still stationed in Saigon. Allied South Vietnamese citizens were to be helped too. 3 helicopters, which could carry 55 passengers each. Standard non-combat logistics within the carrier involved only a few dozen transportees a day. Captain Lawrence Chambers, the USS Midway commander, struggled to accommodate the incoming helicopters and refugees. Weather conditions complicated Commander Vern Jumper's task of organizing flight operations, and aircraft kept going back and forth. Meanwhile, the Marines aboard the warship searched the incoming evacuees, looking for contraband and weapons, and crew members provided basic medical care and food. Captain Chambers later stated, quote, "A flight deck is a hazardous operation under normal conditions. And when you see little kids and mothers holding little babies and airplanes, helicopters are taking off and landing, you just kind of hold your breath." Despite arranging the incoming aircraft as close together as possible, the USS Midway's deck quickly filled up. Then, a small rambling bird dog came into view. A high-risk landing. When Major Bung's bird dog was initially sighted, Captain Chambers knew that if it wasn't allowed to land, the aircraft would crash in the USS Midway's deck. To make matters worse, the fixed-wing bird dog could not hover and drop off its passengers safely, and its fixed landing gear would make the aircraft flip if it attempted to land in the water. As the bird dog circled, 3 paper notes were dropped from the cockpit, but the crew couldn't reach them before they blew over the side. A 4th note was weighed using a pistol's leather holster. The message read, quote, "Can you move this helicopter to the other side? I can land on your runway. I can fly 1 hour more. We have enough time to move. Please rescue me. Major Bung, wife, and 5 child." All available crewmen and volunteers were summoned to help clear the deck for landing. The ship was turned into the wind to facilitate the landing, and firefighters readied their hoses. The landing cables were also removed because the Cessna didn't have a tailhook. The crew then heaved 3 empty Hueys and 1 Chinook to the sides, and they went overboard. Making the most of the opportunity, another 5 helicopters landed and disembarked their passengers, and they were thrown overboard too. Chambers believed that he would be court-martialed for disposing of millions of dollars, so he looked away, trying to avoid the chaos. Translators in the bridge tried to warn Bung about the unpredictable downdrifts, but their attempts were unsuccessful. The rattling aircraft made 2 practice passes to get a feel for the landing. Bung then lowered the flaps and caught up to the ship at 60 knots. The aircraft slowly descended, bounced once on the landing area, and stopped halfway through the runway. Marines ran to hold the bird dog in case it rolled over to the side, but its short takeoff and landing features prevented it from moving. With the help of dozens of crew members who used their bodies to hang onto the aircraft, Bung and his wife climbed out of the cockpit, carrying their youngest child. The pilot then pulled the seat forward, and their 4 other children followed, while everyone on deck clapped and cheered. As for the Bung family, they were transported to the U.S., along with 130,000 South Vietnamese refugees. The USS Midway's crew established a fund for the family, and they are now American citizens. Bung and his family still visit their infamous bird dog at the National Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida.
On April 30th, 1975, all of the armed forces radio outlets in and around Saigon broadcast a secret message.
I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
They began simultaneously playing Bing Crosby's White Christmas. It was the signal to the remaining American civilians and friendly South Vietnamese.
Children, listen.
The evacuation of Saigon had begun.
In the snow.
The U.S. Embassy became unthinkably chaotic as everyone scrambled to escape the approaching North Vietnamese army and the horrors that awaited anyone unfortunate enough. As the communist North Vietnamese army invades Saigon, the U.S. Navy is called upon to evacuate thousands of Americans and South Vietnamese trapped in the city.
On the 29th of April, 1975, at 3:30 in the afternoon, we got the word to execute Operation Frequent Wind.
The USS Midway was instructed to expect a couple of hundred evacuees. But as the first helicopter arrived, and then another, and then 2 became 4, the Midway's deck crew realized the number of evacuees was going to be much higher.
It was such a busy operation. At one time, I counted 26 Hueys circling the ship. My major concern was safety. Many of the helos coming aboard had never seen a carrier before and had less than 5 minutes of fuel remaining. I was so afraid that one of these helos coming aboard was going to flame out and crash on our flight deck. And if that would have happened, a lot of people would have lost their lives. And we had no radio contact with any of them. Everything was by hand signal. Hand signal, everything. A little bird dog airplane was circling the ship. It's a little observation airplane, like a little Cessna 172, and we had no radio contact with it. All of a sudden, he flew right down the flight deck, and he dropped a note on the flight deck, but the note blew over the side. Then he made a second pass, second note, it too blew over the side. His third pass, he wrote up his third note, and it stayed on the flight deck, and this note said, "Can you please move those helicopters to the other side? I can land on your runway. I can fly 1 more hour. We have enough time to move. Please rescue me." And then he signed it. Major Bung-Ly, wife, and 5 children. And I discussed what we're going to do with this guy because we're really busy launching, recovering helos. But he said, "Vern, give me a ready deck. We're going to take him aboard." So we stopped the flight operations momentarily. We pushed over the side 4 Huey helicopters and 1 Chinook. gave him a steady green light with an Aldous lamp, means you're cleared to land. He made a couple low passes just looking at the deck. On his third pass, he made a beautiful carrier landing. He touched down, bounced once, rolled up the deck. He stopped 200 feet short. The major and his wife crawled out of the cockpit. She's holding a baby in her arms, and they had 4 toddlers. My flight deck crew just exploded in joy. It was just amazing.
After 30 hours of continuous operation, more than $10 million worth of helicopters were pushed overboard to make way for the approximately 3,100 refugees that landed on the USS Midway during Operation Frequent Wind. But not Major Bung-Ly's airplane. The sailors of the USS Midway refused to toss the tiny plane into the ocean with the rest of the helicopters, choosing rather to save it. The Major's tiny Cessna 01 Bird Dog is now on display at the Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola, Florida.